SpaceX, a space exploration and transportation company, launched its maiden passengers on the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket to space. The passengers were aboard the sleek capsule known as the Crew Dragon, the first time a space company owned by a private individual had accomplished such a feat. However, many people couldn't help but notice the beautifully designed white and black spacesuit that the astronauts were wearing, which were strikingly different from the orange suits, were all used to this came as a surprise to no one, as the SpaceX spacesuits, as they are referred to, have been in design and development for years. The new SpaceX spacesuits have rekindled the desire for space exploration among the populace, which has always been the dream of its co-designer and chief financial Elon Musk. But why has there been a lot of interest in the SpaceX spacesuits, and why do astronauts require spacesuits? To understand this better, we need to consider the various types of spacesuits, and their functions. There are three types of spacesuits that astronauts wear, depending on the mission they are embarking upon. The first is the intravehicular activity, known as the IVA, which is worn only when the astronauts are inside the capsule. The IVA spacesuits are only required for the launch and entry phases of a space mission. The next is the extravehicular activity spacesuit, EVA, which is worn outside the capsule. Then there is the intra-extravehicular activity spacesuits, IEVA, which can be worn both inside and outside the capsules. Now to the big question: why are spacesuits such a big deal? The importance of spacesuits, the most obvious reason without a shred of doubt, is safety. Outer space is filled with dangerous gases, radiation and temperatures that are not conducive to human life and survival. Spacesuits are specifically designed to replicate the optimum conditions necessary for the flourishing of the human species. They are like Earth in space. They also contain several chambers where food and water are stored. Without spacesuits, astronauts would die within seconds of exiting the space shuttle or the Earth's atmosphere. Due to lack of oxygen, the fluids in their body, including their blood, could boil or freeze due to lack of adequate air pressure. The boiling of bodily fluids could cause the expansion of the skin and other vital organs, leading to death. Spacesuits are also robust enough to protect astronauts from being injured or even killed by micrometeoroids and flying debris in outer space. Also, there are extreme temperatures outside of the Earth's atmosphere. These temperatures can range from -156 degrees Celsius to around 121 degrees Celsius, and are enough to kill anyone. The spacesuits are specifically designed to protect astronauts against these harsh temperatures as they go about their space missions. The difference is between the modern SpaceX spacesuits and the old NASA suits. Although the spacesuits were effective at keeping astronauts safe and alive, they were nowhere near fancy, at least not until last year, when SpaceX launched its new light, sleek and eye-popping spacesuits. These next-generation spacesuits were born out of an unlikely collaboration between billionaire Elon Musk, Hollywood costume designer Joe Fernandez, and NASA. Not only are these suits pleasing to the eye, but are significantly different from their old NASA counterpart, which was called the Advanced Crew Escape Suit ACES. The ACES were the popular orange-colored space suits astronauts wore in the space shuttle when they were traveling to and from space. They were first used in 1994 on NASA mission STS-64, and were supposed to phase out by the turn of the century, but then they were recommissioned and modified to their current state, called the Modified Advanced Crew Escape Suit ACES. Now let's explore the beauty and design of SpaceX spacesuits, and how it's functionally different from its older orange pumpkin sister. Number 1. They're lighter. For starters, their sleek design means that they're lighter than the bulky-looking old NASA spacesuit ACES and more comfortable. Research indicates that they are 40% lighter in weight and are easy to get in and out of, unlike the old ACES, which could take quite a few minutes of precious time to wear or remove. The helmets, which are made using technology called 3D printing, are also lighter, glossier and silkier than their older versions, which were nicknamed bubble helmets. Due to their striking resemblance to a bubble, the SpaceX helmets contain valved microphones for communications and have a retractable visor that can be locked in place. Number 2. They're easier and safer to use. In designing the new spacesuits, one of the significant ideas that was factored in was the ease of use, something that was absent in the old ACES. The state-of-the-art spacesuits have been crafted to ensure that they automatically work with little intervention from the astronauts. All the astronauts have to do is plug their suits into an entry called the umbilical, as soon as they enter the capsule, and the suits do the rest. The umbilical contains oxygen, water and all that is essential for the astronaut's survival. Inside the capsule, the suit also offers protection from potential depressurization. If the cabin which houses the astronauts depressurizes, the SpaceX suits can pressurize automatically, ensuring that oxygen, food and liquid get to and from the astronaut. When he or she needs it, the SpaceX suit comes with gloves that are designed to be touchscreen sensitive. This allows the astronauts to easily operate controls that utilize touchscreen technology without much fuss, as the slightest mistake could prove fatal, and to cap it off, the suits can be worn in one piece, unlike the Aces which are worn piece by piece. Number 3. They're stronger. One of the first astronauts to try out the new SpaceX spacesuits, Bob Behnken, is quoted as saying that the revolutionary suits have a high enough fidelity from a training perspective that we can sit in the capsule, we can put on the suits, and we can go through a situation, or a scenario where the suits are going to inflate. According to Bob Behnken, going through such an experience will prepare astronauts for the demanding nature of space travel. He continued, getting that level of fidelity of training hardware versus PowerPoints and virtual presentations is really important from an operator's perspective, so that's a huge win. The SpaceX team has stepped up to that, and we really appreciated the quality control measures SpaceX went through to ensure their suits were safe for astronauts. The suits were tested on how they operate in zero gravity. This was done at the Zero Gravity Research Facility. Next was to test it for depressurization. Depressurization is when a unit, either a capsule or spacesuit, loses adequate pressure, causing it to malfunction. This was done by depressurizing the capsule and waiting to see whether the spacesuit would automatically pressurize. It was done to ensure that the spacesuit pressurizing system worked perfectly. After passing all those tests, it was time for it to be tested in an actual flight. The first measure SpaceX took to ensure their suits were safe for space travel was by testing the suit on a dummy. The dummy was dressed in a sleek suit and was launched into space on the company's Falcon Heavy rocket. SpaceX then sent another spacesuit-wearing dummy known as Ripley on the Crew Dragon, a reusable spacecraft, when it completed its first unmanned spaceflight. The next thing was to ensure the comfortability and safety of the crew members. SpaceX employed the services of astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken to test the sleek space suits during testing for the Demo 2 flight. The astronauts donned the SpaceX spacesuits to make sure that they were comfortable and safe. With them, the test was conducted in May last year during the Demo 2 test flight to the International Space Station. During a press conference from the space station, Doug Hurley admitted that they have worn and taken off the spacesuits lots of times, and it was easier to get in and out of it. It's also interesting to note that the SpaceX spacesuits are designed only for launch and entry, and can be worn only inside the capsule. For long walks outside the capsule, astronauts have to make use of the extra mobility unit. Thanks for watching this video, and it's a super interesting topic. If you like this, make sure to subscribe. If you have any crazy ideas about what we should cover in next video, please comment it below, and we'll see if we can get to it. So thanks again for watching and goodbye.